would contribute to the resilience of communities across Kerala. So with that idea, we identified experts who are practitioners, who are taking up independent work, or as part of NGOs or government institutions taking up work in eco-restoration, uh, bringing together the schemes that are, all the state policies and schemes that are available for us, and building a comprehensive model where it can create a lot of job opportunities and other co-benefits in terms of increasing the green cover, and uh, just in general increasing the self-sufficiency and tapping into concepts like carbon credits, etc. So with that idea, we also looked at having youngsters. We engaged with a lot of youngsters to see how they perceived the concept of incentivizing eco-restoration. And as part of the resilience roundtable, we had discussions with practitioners, we had discussions with college professors on to seeing how the clubs like Bhumitra clubs and biodiversity clubs worked in colleges to actually get these models to the youngsters and students, and also introducing some sort of concept of incentive. And moving on, we also engaged with a lot of students, young researchers, and even younger students who are like recent graduates, to see how they wanted to contribute and how they thought these initiatives could be sustained through bringing in an aspect of an incentive. And as following up on the engagement with the youngsters, we also launched a competition by the name Kerala, the Kerala contest, which was a very interesting experience even for us. A lot of very passionate, enthusiastic youngsters joined us. We had around 30 applicants coming in, and the idea was to actually come up with implementable solutions for Kerala in eco-restorations, which where they were also directed to actually think about the co-benefits that they can tap into by implementing these restoration models. So out of the 30 applicants, we had like 17 shortlisted teams. Each team had 4 to 5 members, and all of them presented in front of an expert panel. And all of those teams had really interesting, unique solutions that we could implement across Kerala, specific to the locations that they chose to work in. So with these inputs from the Resilience Roundtable series and the Kerala contest was put together, and then we were looking at connecting links to look at how these can be further comprehensively put together by connecting it to the existing policies or schemes that we had in Kerala. So Deepthi had extensively worked in putting together these pieces and connecting it to literature, and also identifying the right schemes and programs that they could actually engage with. So it is with this idea that we've come up with this document. I hope you have an informative read out of this document, and I will now hand over to Deepthi, who had put in a lot of effort in putting together these pieces and bringing together a very comprehensive report. Thank you.
Thank you, Sauparna, and thank you everyone here for joining us today. A little bit about myself. I am Deepthi Batala. I am a PhD candidate in architecture at the University of Michigan, and I am so happy to have been a part of the team that put together this report. So let me quickly introduce you to the content of the document and what purpose we hope this document will serve. So just to brief on what ecosystem restoration is. So ecosystem restoration is any effort that aids in the recovery of an environment that has been degraded, damaged, or destroyed. It has a range of practices that are very context specific. Now, over the last 5 years, this concept of ecosystem restoration has been identified globally as one of the key strategies to address climate change and to build resilience, among others. So the United Nations has declared 2021 to 2030 as the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration to ramp up global efforts. And similarly, the Climate Change Conference, COP27 last year, also identified ecosystem-based approaches for disaster mitigation. And most recently, the union budget in India that was just released also has 2 schemes specifically on ecosystem restoration through incentive-based models. So one is called the Amrit Dharohar scheme that focuses on the optimal use of wetlands to generate ecotourism-based income for local communities. And the other one, abbreviated as MISHTI, is a mangrove restoration scheme that will be carried out through the Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. So, and when it comes to our context of Kerala, the Kerala Forests and Wildlife Department has already created what was India's first large-scale ecosystem restoration policy, 2021. And there are several notable examples of incentive-based restoration on the ground in Kerala and on the other parts of India that we believe can be replicated. So there isn't a better time than where we are at right now in this moment to work on restoration approaches and to think about models to carry out such projects on the ground. One of the major challenges that has been identified in restoration projects across the board is financing these projects to sustain them for a long term and scaling them up. So the idea of incentive-based models is precisely to overcome that challenge in the Kerala context. More specifically, incentivized models that focus on job creation, that utilize local knowledges and make the community central to these efforts has been the focus here in this report. And the report discusses examples of these projects that are already underway and the learnings from them to suggest how different types of incentives beyond monetary incentives can be used to encourage restoration efforts. And these efforts, like the example show, have several co-benefits, and some of which are generating additional income for the communities, especially those dependent on agriculture, ecotourism, and fishing, reducing impacts of natural disasters, enhancing local food security, improving carbon sequestration, obviously other health co-benefits, and water, soil, and air quality regulation. And these are just a few to name. These are just to name a few. So what we hope this report on incentive-based models for ecosystem restoration report will serve is the purpose of being a resource for anyone formulating restoration projects in the state. But I think it will also serve as a directory of sorts for ecosystem restoration and literature related to it in general. Yeah, so I want to end there, and I will now hand it over to Sanju, who will discuss more about the report and its contents. Thank you again for all of you for joining us.
Thank you, Taupana, and thank you, Dipti, for the brief but detailed look into what the document is about. So as continuing from what Dipti had mentioned, the major agenda here is to look into ways through which we can create additional income or incentives and more green jobs in Kerala over the next few years, while at the same time restoring Kerala to its old glory, so that we can defend any future threat that can happen to us in terms of the climate disasters, and also contribute towards the global efforts on climate mitigation. Now, the Indian International Labour Association mentions that by the next 20 to 30 years, we would be creating more than 20 million green jobs in just the sector of nature-based solutions. And of them, almost 12 million plus jobs are going to be created in the South Asian region itself. Now, considering this is a huge opportunity for us to identify ways and pathways where we can include nature-based solutions and ecosystem restoration, through which we can create more jobs, and at the same time also support food security, climate mitigation, and various other co-benefits that the nature would provide us by helping it restore to its own glory. Now, some of the models that we have identified, from the ground tables, from the research that we have done, and from interaction with experts, I'll be presenting here. Now, one of the first model is that of agroforestry and conservation agriculture, through which we could restore the ecosystem. Now, agroforestry is a method where you integrate planting of crops along with trees and multiple other species, so that it by itself becomes an ecosystem, a very highly nutritious ecosystem which helps each other rather than having monocrop. Now, agroforestry is considered to have a lot of benefits in terms of increasing yields, conservation of the soil, and sequestration of large amounts of carbon. Similarly, we also have conservation agriculture, which primarily focus on less amount of tilling being done on the soil and maintaining the nutrition level of the soil without impacting it much. So these two methods of agriculture, if promoted among especially small scale farms and or even small households, can help a lot in restoration efforts, while at the same time it can increase the income of families, it can create it can create additional income, and so on. So a lot of work has already been done on promoting agroforestry and conservation agriculture, but it's scaling up is the major challenge there, which we all want government and public-private partnerships and even CSOs to come together and work on. Yet another model is focusing on mangrove restoration. Kerala being a state with a large number of wetlands, it has an immense potential of restoring mangroves. Now, restoring mangroves is not just is helping in terms of carbon sequestration, which is one of the major benefits that it provides, but it also has a lot of co-benefits such as acting as breeding space for fishes and so on. So in a way, this is also providing a indirect incentive to fishing communities, inland fishing communities who are dependent on fishing as a source of livelihood. For them, improving the mangrove cover can certainly help. Similarly, it can limit the impacts of floods up to an extent, and primarily contributing to eco-DRR efforts of the state. One of the biggest potential that Kerala has in terms of incentive-based ecosystem restoration is that of ecotourism and restoration, including restoration and tourism, ecotourism together. He has huge co-benefits in terms of the livelihood and income generation and the job creation that it can do. Kerala certainly is a great attraction for many people across the globe and even in India as well. But identifying ways to promote tourism in the right way and creating incentives for restoration of the landscapes, especially places like the Vembanad Col, Ramsar site, and the high hilly plains where hundreds and millions of tourists do come every year. These are regions where restoration can be incentivized through tourism efforts, ecotourism efforts. And so we do detail out about what are the potential of this. An example that we have given is that in Cochin, Ernakulam region, Pokali cultivation has been done, and up to an extent, organizations like Blue Yonder has been integrating Pokali cultivation to tourism as well, where tourists are given the chance to come and be part of cultivating, be part of harvesting and things like that. There, the families involved in cultivation gets an additional income through maintaining a Pokali field. But at the same time, Pokali is one of the most highest saline tolerant variety of paddy in the world, and it also is it's saline tolerant. It can grow in deep waters and so on. So it has multiple co-benefits in terms of also preserving the land and preserving conserving water and so on. Uh, Yet another model is about environment education in curriculum. So now you might think environment education is a very common thing, but what is the incentive element here? Now here the incentive element is primarily indirect incentives like certificates or awards or recognition or tour programs, etc. For example, while I was at A3, the Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and the Environment, we had a project called the Habitat Learning Project, where young learners were taken around their own school surroundings to help them understand their own school surroundings, like what is the ecosystem around your school. At least when I was a child, no one really told me what are the small species that's there in my own surroundings. We mostly went to the zoo or watched it on TV also, right? But if we actually observe around our own households, there are so many tiny insects there, so many tiny birds that come there, right? So understanding them, understanding the uses, what is the ecosystem service that they provide. So things like such things are quite important for the young learners to know and understand. So incentives can be that the learning process. Similarly, in Alapura itself, we used to engage the young learners to understand data about their own surroundings, rainfall data. We also used to do water quality testing of their own nearby water bodies so that they could understand. They could also link it with the science and maths that they give studied in school, so they could make graphs, interpret data, and so on. So such things act as a great way to encourage young learners to be part of restoration efforts. And one of the main need for any restoration effort is human power, and schools are large scale human power. I would say that we can use for restoration efforts, especially at the panchayat level, at the corporation level. Once in a month, the young minds can be used for, to put them together for restoration efforts. They get to learn, and the people who are leading it can get the necessary human power, even for that matter, college students as well. So we do detail about some of the other models on education front as well. Then next one is a majorly important thing, that is of traditional ecosystem restoration practices. Here we focus on two major aspects. One is about giving back the land rights of indigenous communities, because globally more than 35% of the land area is being protected by indigenous communities. So giving their land back, giving their land tenure will help in restoration and protection of these areas, because they know what is best for the region, and they know what can be done best to mention and ensure sustainable development in the region. So protecting their land rights is an important aspect. Similarly, we also mentioned about reviving sacred groves. Now, the good thing about sacred groves is that people do have an emotional value to sacred groves, which is the cultural value and the emotional value that we have to sacred groves. So, if there are efforts to, restore sacred groves and protect sacred groves, people would come in, they would pitch in money, they would, that way it can be incentivized for the community who's preserving the region, or the temple that is preserving the region, or whichever community is doing that. So protecting sacred groves is another way. And also there is also a potential of tourism that can be involved in protecting of sacred groves. Globally, there are so many movie makers that have made stories on the sacred groves in Kerala and across India, and have sold, on YouTube and BBC and whatnot. But at the same time, we very little do we realize the potential of maintaining these sacred groves and creating an additional income. Going ahead, another model is the carbon credit and social corporate social responsibility. Now, carbon credit mechanism is not being considered as a great mechanism as such, primarily because it has a lot of hindrances, and at the same time, it also um, it 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 sometimes normal restoration projects that could happen also is uh, put under the carbon credit mechanism, which makes it a poor model. But at the same time, there has been a lot of success models where communities in rural India has been benefited from getting paid for the ecosystems restoration activities that they do, which acts as an additional income. So until and unless the model is there, government and other stakeholders need to ramp up uh, ideas and ramp up the work in terms of accessing that carbon credit finance for restoration efforts. Especially it is accessible for tree planting, mangrove restoration, wetland restoration, and so on. So this needs to be done. Similarly, corporate social responsibility is a major area where restoration funds for restoration can be accessed. But this would need a person in the middle to do this, because many a time our local bodies might not have the capacity to write a project proposal, submit it, and get funds. So here, similarly, CSOs and NGOs can play a major role in getting funds from CSR projects for restoration efforts. Going ahead, we have two connected models. One is the local panchayat or the local government institution as a facilitator for restoration efforts. There are several grants that the panchayat can access from government, state and central government for restoration efforts. So facilitating that can create a lot of green jobs. Similarly, Manrega, തൊഴിലുറപ്പ്, is a very famous scheme that we all know of. As of now, more than 70% of the തൊഴിലുറപ്പ് work is done for nature-based programs. But focusing more on restoration efforts can have multiple co-benefits to the region, and at the same time ensure that none of the Manrega funds go waste. In many places, the Manrega funds are not being in many regions, the Manrega fund is not being utilized properly. So this is one major solution that we propose here to create more jobs and ensure that restoration efforts can scale at a very fast rate. In fact, Manrega is seen as one of the biggest examples of or biggest has the biggest potential according to ILO in terms of nature-based solutions. In fact, they document details about how Manrega is an amazing example that has to be scaled to other parts of the world as well, because of its impact on ecosystem restoration and the potential of ecosystem restoration. Finally, in terms of the solutions that we detail, we have a financial model example from which is very unique to just one panchayat, which is the Meenangadi Panchayat. Some of you might know about the Meenangadi Panchayat. The Meenangadi Panchayat is in Wayanad in Kerala. It is a panchayat that has been closely working with the state and the central government to make it carbon neutral. A lot of organizations such as MSSRF, Tunnel, etc., and a lot of educational institutions have been working together with Meenangadi Panchayat to make it one of the first carbon neutral panchayats in Kerala. They have been doing a lot of efforts in terms of towards the idea of making Meenangadi carbon neutral. But one of the commendable models that we could leverage and learn from is that of developing a finance model where individuals can leverage growing trees and other land restoration efforts to acquire loans. So households there, if they plant trees, they could acquire a loan of up to 50 rupees without the need for any assets to be kept as promised. So this is a revolutionary model, and it has certainly helped a lot of communities start their own businesses and so on. But again, unless it is scaled, the impact would still be small. So understanding the scale, understanding how this can be taken further or scaled up is something that we have to look into. Additionally, we have also mentioned some indirect ways of which restoration can be supported. So one of them is that tax incentives for households. Households who are involved in restoration can be provided by tax incentives, and even tax incentives for businesses who might want to take up restoration efforts. Similarly, interest-free loans for local self-government institutions and even startups. There are a lot of young startups who are coming forward with ideas related to restoration and so on. So how can we similarly, Kerala has one of the largest number of NRIs, NRI population. So my internet is a bit unstable. I hope you're able to hear me.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Kerala has a large NRK or NRI population, which means a lot of the land is being untouched or unutilized at all. Now, if untouched, certainly these land areas could restore by itself. But I mean, if it has been properly transferred or at least part ownership to the government or the local body for restoration efforts, the restoration efforts can be boosted up a bit. It can get that additional effort from the Torilarappu and other schemes. Now, similarly, there is also an international way of incentivizing ecosystem restoration, which is by payment of ecosystem services. Now, we all are dependent on some of the other ecosystem service. For example, if I had my lunch today, that was because of the hundreds of millions of honeybees that helped in pollinating the food. And also there were other factors that played into it, right? So it's just about honeybee, but there are so many other insects and species and even the whole ecosystem that provided a lot of service to us. Now, PS is basically identifying ways for payment for ecosystem services. Whatever, like we depend on bank, right? And we all pay a small fee for that dependency. We pay the bank for debit card fee, or even them having our account and so on. So, but have you ever imagined without the ecosystem services that the nature or our environment provides us, can we even survive? No. So the idea is to those who are affluent should pay for the ecosystem services. This is very much valuable or valid in urban areas where restoration can be incentivized for communities involved in it, or jobs can be created in municipal corporation and municipalities by adding a payment, adding a small amount to the tax as a PES, payment for ecosystem services. Another thing is also in some countries there are gifting programs where individuals can gift land. It's not completely gifting of land, but gift a land on namesake as a government document which says that this land has been gifted to someone, but that amount will be used for restoration efforts, and the person who it has been gifted it to can be involved in restoration efforts and so on. So yes, these are the 8 major restoration efforts, incentive-based ecosystem restoration efforts that we recommend, and also the indirect ones. Now we'll take a couple of questions if some of you have, and post that surely if post that we'll be officially launching the document here as PDF, and then we'll also put it on our website. So if any of you have any questions or thoughts, please feel free to ask. We'll be more than happy to respond to that. Right. I don't see any questions. So what I could do is I could open the document for you. I'll just do a quick scroll of the document for all of you, and then we'll be posting it online soon. So, and then you can you'll be able to access it. So oh. I hope you are able to see the screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Now, possible? No.
No.
No. All right. So yes, this is the document. This is the first page of the document. And as we had mentioned at the start, the primary intention of the document is to help in restoring Kerala to build climate resilience. So in the initial part, we do mention about we have an executive summary and also mentions about some of the global importance, how globally it is quite important, and the SDGs do talk about restoration and incentive-based ecosystem restoration. And as DP mentioned, this is a decade of ecosystem restoration. And, in 2020 December, we had the COP15, the United Nations conference held in Montreal, the biodiversity conference that happened, where also restoration, incentivizing restoration was mentioned as a major topic. Similarly, supporting indigenous communities involved in restoration was also considered as a main topic. COP27 that happened in November in Egypt also mentioned ecosystem restoration and about nature-based solutions. We do have some amazing pictures in the document though, and we've tried to communicate as much simple ways as possible. So this document is not just accessible to policymakers, but it's very simple for anyone who can read and understand. So we do mention about the relevance of incentive-based ecosystem restoration for Kerala. Then we do have the mention about the restoration approaches suited for Kerala. What are the ecosystems that we have to restore? These are some of the 10 guiding principles by the UN Decade of Eco Restoration, which mentions about global contribution, broad engagement, continuum of activities. In fact, these are things that you could certainly look online and read, but for those who might not reach the document, it's easy for them to go through this. Now, 30x30 is a major global target that was announced in the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework that happened in 2022 December, where the major agenda or the idea is that it acts as a new deal to protect 30% of nature by 2030, where the primary target are 30% of areas of degraded terrestrial inland water and even the coastal water. And also ensure and enable that by 2030, at least 30% of terrestrial inland and coastal and marine areas, especially areas of particular importance for biodiversity and ecosystem functions and services, are effectively conserved and managed. Similarly, we have also mentioned, since we were still editing the document, suddenly the union budget came in and Amal Darohar and Mishti came in, so we have mentioned about that as well. And we do have covered some of the major important state level policies. We also mentioned in detail about the challenges. What are the challenges for restoration in Kerala that we understood through the roundtable? In fact, we had Ranjit Matthew sir as well from the chief of WWF Kerala, who had also contributed towards his thoughts here. Similarly, we do the detail about what exactly is incentive-based ecosystem restoration, the co-benefits of ecosystem restoration, and valuation of co-benefits, how it's done, and or how can we understand it. This is a very famous cartoon by Seppo Leonen, a Finnish cartoonist. We have requested his permission to put this on the document, and he agreed. Yeah, you can certainly see this. We do then detail out about the proposals in a tabular format, and also then detail it out in as much as possible, with including recommendations. This is Manoj Etten from Grassroot. In the person that you see who's planning a mangrove is Manoj from Grassroot in Waipin. He has been actively involved in restoring the Waipin mangrove stretch. We have been closely working with him as well. Yeah, on the left, the picture you see is of a Monroe Island, where in fact this is a picture that I took while we went there, where that large patch of mangrove and then ecotourism and restoration goes in hand. Environmental education, the curriculum, and we do detail out everything that we had mentioned now. So yeah, this is a carbon credit example from West Bengal, where a mangrove patch, as you can see, was restored through carbon credit mechanism. As I mentioned, it's not the best mechanism, but certainly communities in the local region can get incentives. Here, in this case, the local community was benefited from the funds that was arrived through the carbon credit mechanism. More details are being given here, which you could read. Then model based on LSTIA as the facilitator. Yes, our toddler Kechmar. These are photos by our climate leader Agnes, and there is also Adish Raj, climate leader, who has contributed some photos. Yeah, this is the Meenangadi. Okay, this is Meenangadi Panchayat, by the way, and there are also mention of the other indirect measures for incentivizing ecosystem restoration that we have detailed out. And finally, we have the methodology chapter, where we detail the methodology that we have used, which was primarily the roundtables. We really wanted to take it to the next level, but yes, lack of funds is one problem, and also, but this was more of a qualitative plus data-based research from online sources. But we were able to talk to a lot of experts and people working on ground, especially bringing together practitioners, understanding their challenges was one of the major takeaways of the program. Yeah, this was the Kerala contest that we launched. We never knew, but more than 30 teams applied with around 75 participants, and we got some amazing ideas. So these are the ideas that came through the Kerala contest. And yes, we also have a chapter on conclusion and recommendations, general recommendations, and we also have specific recommendations for various departments and NGOs, education institutions, and corporate organizations. So yes, so this is the a little document and one of the first publications of the SUSTERA Foundation as well, for which you're all witnessing. So thanks for all of you to join. Anyhow, we'll take a couple of questions if anyone has, or else we'll hear out from Deepti and Saparna and we'll find out. Any questions that anyone like to ask, or we'll be sending you?
Yeah. If you could tell them about how they can access it, or put it in the chat.
Yeah, so we haven't put it in the website, but within an hour or two, we'll put it in the website, and it would be on the first page itself. You can see a link to the document. So within the next hour or two, it will be there in the website. And for people whom like most of you, we do know some of you, but those who might want us to email it can put in the chat. We'll email it right away today after 3 p.m. So maybe you could put your email ID on the chat and we'll send you the document. We really want, I guess the major intention is for policymakers, local government institutions, college students, youth, enterprises, startups to read this and get ideas and start to implement. So this is the major intention.
So Sanju,
hi sir.
Yeah, good evening, and Sorry for coming in a little late, even though I had marked it in my diary. Tomorrow we have a major program on the World Wetlands Day, which is scheduled for tomorrow. So I was pretty held up with that. So my heartfelt appreciation to SUSTERA Foundation for compiling and coming out with this report. And as you know, I was also fortunate to be part of the interaction in this analysis. Good work on compiling this report, and I see that you have come out with general as well as specific recommendations, including to certain agencies or to departments also. So now I think the first part of the work has been complete. My question or this thing is like, how do you plan to take it forward with the government departments and agencies on that the outcomes or the suggestions of this report finds connection to their work in the days ahead?
Yeah, thank you, Ranjan sir, for the question, and it's a very genuine and question, and we have been thinking about that. So the first thing that we'll be doing is, you know about the flagship program, climate leadership program that we organize. We'll be hosting a CLPX, which is a smaller version of a climate leadership program, specifically focusing on ecosystem restoration and biodiversity conservation. So that is one of the first steps that we'll be taking, where these ideas and thoughts that we have compiled will be the major agenda of this shorter CLPX that we'll be doing, where the youngsters will be trained on these aspects. The second thing that we're doing is we already have a project called the Gen Re project, where participatory finance is being pooled for restoration activities. So through that, we are already, especially with grassroots and Uravu, we have been directly involving in restoration efforts. So that we are going to propagate further and try to scale up with the support of government as well. The major thing that we are really looking forward is to try and get these outcomes to the government departments, and also, if possible, host a meeting of panchayat representatives to present to them in Malayalam itself about the various models that they could learn about the restoration efforts. I mean, what do they do at the local level? What are the initiatives that they can do at the grassroots level, and so on. So these are some of the ambitious targets that we do have. Yes, obviously funding is always a hindrance, but the CLPX is certainly going to happen, and the Gen Re restoration efforts is very much happening. Further, yes, we are thinking what could we do, but your suggestions would be helpful. If there is an easy way to sort of put this out to the government, or get someone in the government institution or the state government institution to read it and take it to the next level. You've been working in Kerala for more than, I guess, 20 years now, so your inputs would be very valuable in that.
Yeah, but I just wanted to revert back on one thing, because you mentioned about the working with the local government or the panchayats. Recently, we had convened a meeting called as the Kandal Kutaima, or a gathering or a get together for mangroves. So we came out with we had a brainstorming session, and we came out with the suggestions or the recommendations on the way forward for mangroves in Kerala. And we brought it out as a report, and we sent this report similar to this to the key personalities in the government departments and all that. And we have started now hearing back from them. So one place where we sent it was actually Kila. Dr. Joy Eleman, we sent it to Kila, Kerala Institute of Local Administration, to asking him that whether we can come out with a small handbook on mangrove protection and mangrove restoration, which can be made as an integral part of the trainings for the local self-government institutes. And he has positively replied on that, and we'll be working forward for that. So this, for your report also, maybe you can have a discussion with Dr. Joy Eleman. I think he's more of an open person, and see on how a part of this or a paper out of this can come out as part of their training programs for the local self-government institutes also. Think in that line also. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And yes, Joy Eleman sir has been very close and supportive of our activities, and we'll certainly send him this document. And we'll also need your help for convening with Panchayat, while we do it with the Panchayat representatives. Your feedback, especially your contacts, might really help us bring them together to do a presentation. Thank you. Thanks a lot, sir. Anyone else would like to make a comment, or if you would like to list, have any questions about? All right. I guess everything was very clear. Yeah.
Sanju, I think Deepak wanted to say
Okay.
something. Deepak, you're not audible.
Deepak? You're not audible. Okay. So Deepak is also a very close friend of mine, and now he's studied from the University of Sussex and working in the UK as a consultant. He works with the Selco Foundation in Bangalore for he's been contributing a lot towards the energy transition and energy sector in India. So thanks for joining, Deepak. Oh, Deepak, yes, I think I'll let Sauparna talk about it because we were really happy to see more than 30 groups that applied for the competition. Sauparna, do you know?
Yes, it was really an overwhelming experience for even us. As it was a very specific topic, we weren't looking at having so many applicants, and we didn't know that so many teams could come together and brainstorm in developing an idea for their local regions, as well as also considering all the co-benefits that they can tap in. And communicating the same to a younger lot was, at least in our heads, a challenge. But when we put it out, it uh, came out really well. It went through really well. I mean, everybody could understand the purpose of what we were looking at. And also, we had a 2-day boot camp where we sort of explained how the outputs that we were specifically looking at and how they can frame their presentations. And with that, they were all on board quickly, and the ideas were really helpful. And actually, we didn't know what to do with the ideas further, and we didn't have the funds to further support them on what they wanted to do in their areas. But in terms of conceptually presenting these very interesting, unique pieces of work in local regions was really interesting.
I think especially in terms of, I think one of the great success of the whole project was the competition itself, because I mean, we do strongly believe that opening a competition for the public made a lot of people think about this, because or else even people wouldn't think, right? So this gave the youth an opportunity to think, discuss, because 75 people came as 30 different groups, so they were discussing each other. So that discussion itself has created an impact, is what we believe. And for 2 of them, we were able to give them a small grant to help with their work, especially on research front. Yeah. So, but or else independently, some of them are still continuing the work, but yeah, some of them just ideated it, which itself is quite impactful. Thank you, Deepak. So, and also a big thanks to Vinci and her team. She's the lead for Purpose India. Her efforts have been really instrumental in doing this. At every point in time, we have been bugging her, and then she has been very patiently helping us a lot out with the work. Thanks a lot, Vinci. And Deepti, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I've had so much, happiness being a part of this team. Even though, I wasn't involved in the initial roundtables or discussions, but the kind of information that I've seen that has come out of those roundtables, and looking at the different perspectives. And again, the ideas fetching competition is itself an incentive-based model to gather, ideas for restoration, which I think has worked out really well in terms of methodology. And yeah, and thank you again for involving me in the project, and I look forward to the next steps and being a part of all the future endeavors. So thanks again.
So thank you, Deepti, and thank you, Saparna, and thank you everyone who joined. I would like to specially mention Purpose India and also Ashoka Trust for Research in Ecology and Environment, who has really helped us in making this out. Also, a special thanks to Divya Soman, who is a climate leader and a researcher who has joined as a participant. Neha Kurian from Kila and UNEP. Manoj Kumar, who is a practitioner at Grassroots. Certainly, Ranjan Sir, who has been part and parcel of our or supporting us and mentoring us. He is also there for our program. Ravi Ramalingam from A3, Kerala Sastri Sahitya Parishad, Henna from Urava and the Urava team, VK Sridharan, who is an independent practitioner, Mr. Hari, who is again and Rajan, Biju Kakayam, Madhusudaran, sir, all of them are independent eco-restoration practitioners. A very big thanks to all of them, and also we did have participants, the Dean of School of Earth Sciences from the Department of Environment Sciences. We also have a lot of experts who have joined. Kavya Jeevan, the whole SUSTERA team, especially Deepati, and then she's not there. And then there is Shilpa, Jenik, all of them have Amjad, etc. have equally contributed a lot towards happening this. So thanks a lot. I think we took a lot of time in making this presentable, or else it wasn't really that was a major task. Next time we need to find someone who can really make it presentable for us, because all the editing, I did enjoy the creative side of my mind started to work, even for Deepti and Saparna. They were all involved in doing it in Canva. A big thanks to Canva, I would say, because without Canva, it would have been really tough for any of us to bring it out like this, because Photoshop and all of that are really old now. So a big thanks to all. And yeah, once again, thank you for joining. We'll be sending the document out to you as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.